My name's Lena. I'm 26, 7 months pregnant, broke, and sleeping in the living room of the house I swore I'd never step foot in again. I came back here because I had nowhere else to go. No money, no job, no Jude. He was the only person who ever really saw me. And then he was gone, just like that. A fever that turned to infection, a hospital bed, a silence so big it swallowed every plan we ever made. And suddenly, I wasn't a fiancé anymore. I was a pregnant woman crashing on the couch of her childhood home, surrounded by people who treat me like a walking apology. And this house, it's not home. It's a waiting room for judgment. My mom, Veronica, treats my belly like it's some kind of billboard for my failure. My half-brother Eli, still living here at 26, still thinking the world owes him a standing ovation. And I'm just trying to make it to the next morning without collapsing under the weight of being too much in a place where I'm barely tolerated. They seem like the perfect family, but behind the smiles are secrets they're afraid to face. Think you know them? Think again. Watch fragments where love, lies, and loss collide. Keep watching to find out, can love heal or only make things worse? Don't miss a moment, subscribe now, and share your thoughts below. Do you think they'll make it through? Anyway, this is what it looks like when you come back to a family that's more concerned with saving face than saving each other. Nothing's changed in this house. The wallpaper's still peeling in the corners. The coffee maker still leaks, and no one ever talks about the things that matter. Eli spends most of his day in his room, writing posts about accountability in leadership, while Mom sips red wine from her coffee mug and pretends not to hear the floorboards cry under my feet. Every day here feels like walking around a museum of things no one wants to admit ever happened. I wake up early now. I don't know if it's the baby or just the anxiety that keeps me from sleeping, but I spend a lot of mornings sitting at the kitchen bench, staring at the same cracked tile, folding whatever's in reach. An old blanket, baby clothes, Jude's last shirt. My hands need something to do when my heart's caving in. Then it starts. Thursday morning. 7 a.m., I feel it. A deep ache in my back like something shifting inside me. The kind of pain that tells your body about to do something ancient and irreversible. I try to wake Eli. I knock twice. Eli, I think it's starting. I need a ride. He groans. It's 5 in the morning, Lena. As I know. I think I'm in labor. Another pause. I've got a Zoom at 9, just call someone. I want to laugh, but it hurts too much. I shuffle to the kitchen, where Mom is already watching her detective show, volume up loud enough to shake the windows. She doesn't even turn to look at me. Mom, I'm having contractions. She rolls her eyes. You sure it's not just gas? I double over a little. It's not gas. You can't wait a few hours. I blink, dumbfounded. No. I think I need to go. Now. She finally looks at me, just long enough to say, you're not dragging me into this. I've done my part. You're on your own. It's always like that with her. A glass of wine in one hand, a victim complex in the other. Her version of support is not screaming when I walk through the room. So I do what I've been doing for months. I take care of it myself. I make it to the porch, step by step, breathing through the pain like Jude taught me. The cold hits me hard. I can barely walk. My body's locking up, but I have no choice. Then it gets worse. My knees buckle and I go down. Right there on the concrete, right next to the stupid garden gnome Mom still insists is charming. A car slows down as it passes, then keeps going. No one stops, no one checks, and that's when I feel it. This aloneness. Not just being physically alone, but emotionally disposable. Like if I disappeared right now, they just vacuum the spot where I fell and call it a day. Until I hear footsteps. A guy in a hoodie, maybe early 30s, holding a cup of gas station coffee, sees me curled up on the ground. Hey, are you okay? I can't even speak. I just nod and point to my stomach. Oh shit, are you in labor? I nod again. He doesn't hesitate, phone to ear, yelling for an ambulance. He kneels down, coat already coming off. He lifts me like I weigh nothing, puts me in the back of his car. It smells like fries and leather, but it's warm. The heat is blasting. He asks nothing. Just drives like it's his own sister bleeding out in the backseat. And I realize I don't even know his name. But this stranger just did more for me in 3 minutes than my own family has in 3 months. And for the first time in what feels like forever, I start to believe maybe I'll make it after all. The hospital room is too bright, like it's trying to erase whatever I carried in with me. But it can't. No amount of clean sheets or softly spoken questions can scrub the shame out of my skin. I'm still shaking when the nurse wheels me in. She keeps saying things like, "You're safe now," and "almost there." But the words bounce off me like ping-pong balls in a hurricane. I lie on the bed, sweat soaking the back of my shirt, one hand gripping the metal rail so tight I think it might bend. "Do you have anyone you want us to call?" She asks gently. No, yes, no, my mind goes blank. Any family. She tries again. My throat closes. I want to say yes just so I don't have to explain. But the only people I could call are probably asleep with their phones off, or worse, awake and ignoring mine on purpose. "I'm fine," I whisper. "It's just me." She nods, but there's this flicker in her eyes, like she already knows. They hook me up to monitors, stick IVs in my arm, and ask the same questions over and over. "When was your last ultrasound? Any known complications? Do you have a birth plan?" God, no, I don't even have a plan. I had Jude, and that was it. We were going to figure it out together. Midnight feedings, diaper disasters, Sunday mornings with old records playing in the background. Now I can't even remember how we got from that version of life to this. The contractions come faster, harder. I breathe like they told me to in those YouTube classes I watched at 2 a.m., curled up on Jude's side of the bed. But the pain is like an animal. It doesn't care how well you prepared. Somewhere between the 3rd and 4th hour, I break, not physically, emotionally. The tears just come, hot and stupid and endless. I whisper his name, not loud, just enough for the air to remember it. Jude. A nurse hears it. Or maybe just senses the way my voice cracks apart at the edge. She walks over, no clipboard, no gloves, just herself. She doesn't ask what's wrong. She just places a warm hand on my forehead like she's checking for fever. But I know she's not. She's checking for grief. It's all over me. I probably reek of it. That silent kind that sits behind your ribs and whispers this is all your fault when no one's watching. The hours blur. I scream, I curse. I say things I don't mean. I beg for someone to make it stop. But somewhere between all that noise, he arrives. They place him on my chest, tiny, red, howling, and suddenly everything is quiet. Not in the room. The room is still buzzing. But inside me, quiet in a way I've never known, I stare at him. He has Jude's mouth. His jawline, that small crease above the nose. My God, it's like he came back, just for a second. Just to say, "You're not alone," I name him River. Because everything in me has been swept away. The first night is the hardest. There's no one sitting in the chair beside me. No one texting to say, "I'm so proud of you." No flowers, no balloons. Just me, River, and the hollow silence of a recovery ward at 3:17 a.m. He sleeps like he knows better than to cry. Like he's already learned we don't make noise in this family unless we want to pay for it. I stare at the ceiling tiles and wonder if I made the biggest mistake of my life. Not having him, but coming back. Trusting that this house, these people, this place could ever hold me safely again. I want to run. I want to hide. I want someone to knock on the door and say, "We've changed. Come home." But no one comes. Instead, the nurse, the same one from before, returns during her morning rounds. She walks in holding 2 plastic-wrapped muffins and a bottle of orange juice. "You looked hungry yesterday," she says, placing them on the tray table. "Didn't know what kind you liked." I can barely look at her. My eyes sting again. "You okay?" I nod, yeah. She pauses. "Can I ask something?" Sure." "Why'd you come in alone?" I swallow hard. Because the only people I had stopped being people the moment I needed them. That day, something shifts. Not in the world, in me. I realize I've been waiting for something that isn't coming, an apology, a change, a sign. And maybe it's time I stop waiting and start walking away. They say trauma makes you numb. But for me, it made me sharp. Every word they said, every door slammed, every eye roll, it all became a needle I learned to live around. But now I've got River. And I'm not about to teach him how to dodge sharp things before he even learns to walk. The discharge papers are ready on the 3rd day. They ask where I'm going. I say, I'm not sure yet. The nurse, her name's Rachel, I finally ask, offers something soft and impossible. I volunteer part-time at a women's shelter down the block. Just until you find your feet. It's safe, real safe. I don't know if I can say yes. It feels like failure, but I look at River, and I remember the porch, the silence, the slam of that front door like a sentence being passed. So I say yes. They give us a small room with beige walls, a twin bed, and a curtain instead of a door. The mattress squeaks when I sit. River squirms in my arms but doesn't cry. A woman across the hall, maybe 30, maybe 50, it's hard to tell with bruises, nods at me without saying a word. That night, someone leaves a small pack of diapers on my bed. No name, just kindness. I cry harder than I did during labor. I don't sleep much. But when I do, I dream about the house. Not the version I just left. The old one. The one where I was 6 and Jude was still alive and Eli hadn't learned how to hate yet. Before Mom's wine glass became an extension of her arm. Before everything started breaking. By the time the sun comes up, River is snoring against my chest. I kiss the top of his head and say something I'm not sure he can hear, but I need to say it anyway. We're gonna be okay, even if it's just you and me. And for the first time in a long, long time. I almost believe it. The shelter smells like bleach and baby powder. It's cleaner than you'd expect, quieter too. No shouting, no slamming doors, just the low hum of tired lives pressed against each other through thin walls. The first night, I keep one sneaker on, just in case. I don't know what I'm expecting, fire, flood, someone to show up from my past and tell me this was all a mistake. But nothing happens. River sleeps like he's known this place forever. Like safety doesn't need to look fancy to feel real. There's a woman in the bunk next to mine. She goes by Sam. She's got 2 kids and a stare that could break concrete. We don't talk much at first, just the occasional nod. But she watches River like he's a fragile secret. Her daughter leaves a stuffed bear at the foot of my mattress on the 2nd morning. I don't return it. Small mercies are sacred here. I start noticing how quiet people are here, not silent, but intentional. Nobody asks too many questions. Nobody assumes anything. They just see you, not through judgment, but familiarity. It's the kind of place where you can break down in the hallway and no one will call it drama. They'll hand you tissues, maybe half a granola bar, and sit next to you until you stop shaking. There's power in that kind of silence. Not the silence I knew back home, cold, punishing, weaponized. This one is warm, patient. The kind of silence that says, take your time. We know, the days blur together fast. I help in the kitchen when I can. Wash dishes, sweep floors, take inventory of donations. It's not much, but it gives me purpose. It reminds me I still have hands that can do something useful. I tape River's first drawing to the inside of my locker. It's just scribbles, really. Blue marker all over an old envelope, but he held the pen himself. I cried for 20 minutes after that. I'm learning to celebrate small things now. Because big things, they don't always come. I think a lot about Jude in those weeks. What he'd say if he saw me now. Living off food stamps, sleeping under a shared roof, using a donated stroller with a squeaky wheel. He'd probably laugh. Not in a mean way, he had this easy laugh, low and messy, like he never really learned how to do it properly. He'd say something like, "You're a goddamn warrior, baby," and I'd roll my eyes and call him dramatic. But then he'd make pancakes. Bad ones, always undercooked in the middle. Always with too much cinnamon. God, I miss even the burnt parts. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if he'd lived. Would we have made it? Would I still be me? Or did this version of me, the one who scrubs rice out of soup pans and saves every receipt, only exist because he left? I don't know what scares me more, losing him or what it turned me into. One night, after River finally goes down, I find myself sitting in the courtyard behind the shelter. It's cold, and I should be sleeping, but I can't. The air smells like soil and cigarette smoke. Someone left a half-lit candle on the edge of the bench. Sam comes out and sits next to me, doesn't say anything for a while, just lights a smoke and stares at the sky. "You look better," she says eventually. I snort. "Then what?" "Then the night you got here. You looked like a kicked dog." I glance at her. "Thanks." She shrugs. "I mean it. You got bones again. Anger looks good on you." I want to argue. Tell her I'm not angry, that I'm just tired, but I think she's right. There is something burning under my skin now. Not rage, not yet, but the outline of it. The memory of being dragged. The voicemail that said I bled on the porch like it was vandalism. The look on my mom's face when I begged, and she turned away like I was asking for something obscene. That anger, it's starting to feel less like poison and more like fuel. I start documenting everything. Not out of revenge, not exactly, I just need a record. A timeline. A truth that no one can gaslight me out of. I write it all down, the dates, the voicemails, the phrases I'll never forget. "You ruined your sister's future. You should be grateful we didn't call the cops. You made your bed." Every time someone said I was the problem, I file it. I even print screenshots from Paige's social media posts. The ones she thought no one remembered. Photoshopped smiles over a bleeding history. I'm not planning anything, not really, but a part of me wants evidence, not to fight, to exist. Fully, honestly. After a month, the shelter's job coach pulls me aside. "You've got a brain," she says. "I can see it in the way you organize the pantry." I blink. "You've been watching me stock soup cans." She smiles. "With strategy, precision. You think like someone who needs a system." Turns out there's a GED program nearby with childcare. She offers to write me a recommendation. I say yes before I even think about it. River gets sick the same week classes start. Nothing serious, just a fever, but it rattles me. Every time he coughs, I picture him vanishing the way Jude did, quiet and fast and unfair. I stay up all night with a damp cloth on his forehead, whispering lies like, "Mommy's got you," and "everything's okay," even though I'm 2 steps from breaking. The next morning, Sam catches me before I head out. "You look like shit." "Thanks," I mumble. She hands me a protein bar and a thermos of tea. "You're not gonna do him any favors if you drop dead first." I nod. I know she's right. But God, it's hard. Hard to juggle futures when the present is falling apart. Hard to think long-term when every cough sounds like a countdown. Still, I show up. To class, to kitchen duty, to everything. Because if I give up now, what was the point of surviving? I wear River in a baby carrier while I mop floors at the shelter on Sundays. I borrow textbooks from the library bin. I teach myself budgeting from a laminated pamphlet someone left in the laundry room. I don't have a plan, but I have movement. And sometimes that's enough. Late one night, I'm folding clothes while River sleeps in a second-hand crib beside me. I hold up one of his tiny onesies and suddenly remember the old kitchen table back home. The one Dad said was too cluttered for a man's house. I used to fold socks there before he threw me out. And just like that, I know I'll never go back. Not even if they beg, not even if they cry. Because this place, this crowded, borrowed, imperfect place, might not be home, but at least it never tried to erase me. I get the job on a Wednesday morning. A local diner 2 blocks from the shelter, run by a woman named Marcia who's been smoking since 1982 and has 0 patience for anyone who can't handle a mop. She hires me on the spot, says I've got the kind of face that knows how to stay quiet and work hard. I'm not sure if it's a compliment, but I take it anyway. I work the overnight shift, mostly dish pit and cleanup. River comes with me, bundled in layers, strapped to my chest in a second-hand carrier. At first, Marcia gives me a look like she's about to say no. Then she notices how I rinse the sink before using it, and how I don't flinch when someone drops a plate, and she just nods. "Don't let him cry in the walk-in," she says. "Scares the cooks." We're good after that. The hours are brutal, midnight to 6. I come home sore, drenched in bleach water and steam, legs like jelly. But there's something satisfying about it. Like for the first time in a long time, my exhaustion means something. My hands are raw. My eyes, the woman who interviews me is kind. Sharp-eyed but soft-spoken. She asks about my background, my availability, my goals. I lie on the last part. I say something smart about wanting to be part of something meaningful to build a future in tech. What I really want is a lock on my own front door and the ability to buy oranges without checking my bank app. When she tells me, "You've got potential," something in my throat cracks. I start the program 2 weeks later. The building is clean and smells like toner and possibility. The first time I drop River off in the on-site childcare room, he cries. I cry too, but I wait until I'm in the bathroom stall. I walk into that first coding class feeling like I snuck in through a back door I wasn't supposed to find. Everyone around me seems smarter, cleaner, more prepared. But when I sit down, open the laptop, and run my first line of code without breaking something, I feel a tiny flicker of control. Not hope, not yet, but something sturdier. River turns one the week I learn how to build a basic website. We don't have cake. I can't afford decorations. But I buy him a tiny toy turtle from the dollar bin and take him to the park down the block. We sit on a bench under a tree, and I snap a photo on my cracked phone. Just me and him. No caption. No tags. I posted on an old social account I haven't touched since Jude died. I don't even know why I do it. Maybe because I want someone, anyone, to see that we survived. Less than an hour later, the first message comes in. It's from Paige. Wow, still trying to act like a saint? You've always had a victim complex. I don't reply, but it's like breaking a seal. A few days later, a letter arrives at the shelter. No return address, but I recognize the handwriting immediately. My mother's cursive. Elegant, precise. Like she's writing wedding invitations, not guilt grenades. We're worried sick. You've embarrassed the entire family. If you don't come home soon, we'll have to clear your room. There are people who actually need the space. No mention of River. No apology, just veiled threats tied up in concern like a poisoned ribbon. The second letter is worse. Longer. Colder. She says I need to forgive and forget. Says my sister never meant to laugh that night and that we were all under stress. There's a voicemail from my dad, too. His voice sounds older, more tired. You can't keep punishing everyone just because life didn't go your way. Then comes the worst one, a blocked number. I pick up by accident, thinking it's the school calling about River's paperwork. It's him. You should be grateful we didn't call the cops for trespassing. That's still our house. You had no right to bleed on our porch like that. I hang up. My hands shake so bad I drop the phone. I sit down on the floor of the bathroom at the tech building, forehead pressed against the cold tile, and try to breathe. My mind is a tornado. I want to scream, break something. Drive back and throw every word they ever said right into their faces. But instead, I do what I always do. I write it down. I file the letter. I transcribe the voicemail. I save screenshots. Every word, every lie, every cruelty wrapped in denial, I keep it all, because someday they'll ask for something. And all I'll have left to give is the silence they forced me into. But this time, it'll be mine, my silence, my choice. And it'll be louder than anything they ever said. I don't even flinch when the receptionist says someone's on the phone for me. It's just another Thursday. I'm sitting in the break room at the tech center, sipping bad vending machine coffee while River builds a train track on the floor beside me. I've learned to tune out most things. Buzzing lights, background noise, even the occasional jab from classmates who think I don't belong. But when she pokes her head in and says, "There's a man asking for you," says it's urgent, I feel it, this cold twist low in my stomach. I know that voice before I even press the phone to my ear. "Lena," my father says, just like that. No apology, no lead-in. "Your sister, S, in trouble." For a second, I forget how to hold the receiver. He doesn't ask how I am, doesn't ask about River, just barrels ahead like we never stopped speaking. "She had some kind of breakdown. Bad, she's at the hospital. Your mother, S, beside herself. We thought maybe you'd come." I don't say a word, I just let the silence stretch, thick and uncomfortable. "She's been saying your name," he adds, voice softening like that's supposed to mean something. And that's when I feel it. Nothing, not rage, not fear, not even sadness. Just nothing. Like whatever part of me used to ache at his voice has finally packed its bags and moved out. I hang up without speaking. It's not a dramatic thing. No slam, no tears, just click. The sound of a door that was already halfway closed. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzes. Blocked number, I almost ignore it, but I look. "Please come, please, I didn't know it would hurt like this." I see it now, I see what I did. "Please, Paige," for a second, just a second, I almost cry. But then I remember the porch. The cold under my knees, The way her mascara didn't even smudge when she laughed at me mid-contraction. And that voicemail, God, that voicemail, about how I had no right to bleed on their property. So instead, I text back something short. Surgical, you told me I ruined everything. I didn't want to ruin your recovery. Then I power the phone off for a week. Because I know them. They don't want forgiveness. They want absolution. They want to scrub out the past and pretend we're still some perfectly fractured, holiday card family. They want me to crawl back and say, it's okay, so they can keep pretending it was never that bad. But it was. And I'm not going back just to make them feel better about leaving me out in the cold to die. The messages keep coming anyway. Emails from my mom. Long, dramatic, passive-aggressive masterpieces that start with, we miss you, and end with, you should be more mature by now. One line grabs me, though. We're selling the house. That makes me sit up. She goes on to explain that the buyers are a family who value history. They want to preserve the story of the home. My birth certificate, she says, is framed in the study, and it would mean a lot if you came to retrieve it personally. For the record, the irony tastes bitter in my mouth. They erased me from that house long ago, and now they want me to come back and make it official. I stare at the screen for a long time. River, S in the next room, coloring. The tip of his tongue sticks out when he concentrates, just like Jude's used to. He hums to himself as he draws turtles floating in the sky. It hits me then, sharp and sudden. I'm not scared of them anymore. Not scared of what they'll say, or how they'll twist it. I'm scared of me. Of what I might feel when I see them again. Of how easily my heart still wants to crack open and believe the best in people who have only ever handed me shards. But I also know this, if I go back, it has to be on my terms. No forgiveness, no apology fishing, just truth, so I say yes. The day I return, it's raining. Not heavy, just enough to make the air feel like it's pressing down on you. I leave River with Sam. She doesn't ask questions, just hands me her umbrella and tells me to breathe. When I pull up to the house, that house, I barely recognize it. Smaller, older. A little like a lie that's been left out in the sun too long. My mom opens the door. She looks thinner, but not softer. Her lips twitch like she wants to smile, but her eyes don't get the memo. Lena, she says. I step past her without replying. My dad standing by the stairs. He doesn't speak either. And Paige? She's in the living room. Her eyes are rimmed red, her hair pulled into a loose braid that makes her look younger. She stands when I enter, but I hold up a hand. I came for the certificate, I say flatly. No hugs, no fake concern, just business. My mom leads me to the study, and there it is. Framed, centered. Like some kind of achievement they want credit for. My name, my weight. The day I came into a world that never made room for me, I stare at it for a long time. Why did you want this? I ask without looking up. For the new owners, my dad says from the hallway. I take the frame off the wall, carefully open it, fold the certificate and slip it into my purse. Then I pull out something else. A black and white photo. One page posted years ago to her short-lived blog. She didn't even realize what she was capturing, just her, standing on the porch, mid-laugh, perfectly posed. In the background, me, on the ground, clutching my belly, in labor, in pain. Alone, I slide it into the frame, hang it back on the wall. That's the memory, I say softly. That's the truth. My mom's face drains of color. My dad opens his mouth but can't seem to find words. Paige doesn't move. I turn before they can speak, and I walk out of that house like I'm never coming back, because I'm not. That door closed a long time ago. I was just here to lock it. That night, I take River to dinner, just the two of us. A booth at the cheap pizza place near our apartment. We split a root beer float. He dips his crust into ketchup and tells me turtles can breathe in space. I ask him how many he thinks could fit in the sky. He counts on his fingers, gets to 14 before getting distracted by a crayon. I smile, not because everything's okay, but because we are, and that's enough. Let them live with the silence I left behind. Let them fill that house with new paint and fake stories. I don't need revenge. I've got something better. I've got proof. I've got peace. And I've got River. The first time I leave the apartment door unlocked on purpose, it scares the hell out of me. It's a warm Saturday. River's drawing chalk turtles on the sidewalk. I'm halfway through folding laundry, window cracked, sunlight spilling across the floor. Something in me says you can trust this moment, just for a little while. And so I do. No alarms, no flashbacks, just stillness. I don't realize how much tension I've been carrying until it's gone. The apartment is small. One bedroom, mismatched furniture, a fridge that hums louder than necessary, but it's ours. River's drawings are taped to the wall above the couch. I labeled each Tupperware container in the kitchen with neon sticky notes because he likes knowing what's inside before he opens anything. His favorite color changes every week. This week it's green, last week it was space. He's almost 4 now. Every day he asks a question I can't answer. Where did my dad go? I don't know how to explain death to a child who thinks the moon is just a nightlight for the sky. So I tell him the truth, piece by piece. Your dad was magic. He loved music and burnt pancakes and holding you before you were even here. River nods like he already knew that. He always seems to know things without being told. I finish the apprenticeship. Get offered a full-time spot. Start saving for preschool and a new pair of boots. No one hands me a medal. There's no standing ovation. Just an email, a pay stub, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing I built something from ashes. The shelter throws a goodbye lunch for me. Marcia sends a card with a $20 bill tucked inside and a note that just says, "You didn't flinch. You're gonna be fine." Sam hugs me tighter than anyone ever has. "You're what surviving looks like," she says. "Don't let them ever call that failure again." I nod, and then I go, because it's time. Some nights I still wake up gasping. Dreams of the porch, of cold tile, of begging and being ignored, but they don't stay as long anymore. Now the light in the hallway stays on. The fridge is full. The blankets smell like lavender and detergent, not mildew and regret. I don't owe explanations to anyone, not even them, and yet, sometimes the past finds its way in. A voicemail I didn't delete. A holiday postcard from a cousin who didn't know what really happened. An old photo tucked into a donated book, but it doesn't hurt the same way. It just reminds me who I am now, and who I'll never be again. One evening, River's sitting in my lap while I read him a story. He looks up and says, "You know, I think our house is louder than the old house." I blink, "Yeah." He nods, "There's always music and soup, and you sing when you clean." I laugh, "Is that loud?" He leans into my shoulder, "It's good loud." I tuck the blanket around us, and I think maybe that's what I was chasing this whole time. Not revenge, not closure, just volume I could live inside. Sound that didn't scare me, noise that felt like love. I never texted them back, never sent a picture, never offered an update. The silence I gave them wasn't cruelty. It was boundary. It was evidence of healing. And that photo I left in the house, that black and white moment of truth, is probably still hanging there. Framed. unexplained, a memory nailed into their perfect little timeline. Let them see it. Let the new owners ask. Let the truth echo in the hallways they once ruled. That silence, it belongs to me now, and I've never felt louder in my life. Thanks for sticking with me all the way to the end of this journey. This was a story about invisible wounds, about silence that was forced, and a woman who turned that silence into strength. If you've ever had to fight to be heard, to be seen, to simply exist on your own terms, drop a comment. What do you think about Lena's choice?